This video brought to you by Cabal Coffer.
Dude, would you like copious amounts of black mana and have a lot of swamps in your in your land base?
I hope you have a
Cabal Coffers is for you. Now
where's
only,
Orborg?
Now only 2 easy payments of 1 mana and a tap, and you can have
2 mana and a tap.
That's what I said. 2 easy payments of 1 mana and a tap. You can.
Well, now you're making them think they have to tap twice. Like, how do I tap this land twice, Zach?
8 easy payments of a quarter of a mana, and you can have.
Welcome back to Magic Daddies.
The Magic Daddies podcast, baby.
Okay, so it is the Magic Daddies podcast. I
I
missed
feel
the
like
last
it doesn't
one.
matter at this point.
No,
like we can say what we want.
100% matters. I missed the last one, and I feel terrible about it.
I'm in my head. I'm wondering like when we're going to take this Magic Daddies thing too far, but I'm here for it. And I'm all
We can't. It's fine. We're dads. We're talking about magic.
Are without Joshua tonight.
He
was indicted today on charges about leaking
He's in
U.S.
Lubbock
documents.
still, right? Wait, did we even text
on
him?
Russian Reddit? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Did we even text him and ask
I
him?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
he was recouping from his like 2-week long stay with family, both of them coming to his house and him going elsewhere. So
I'm good.
he didn't even text complete words. Like it was a whole thing. No. Yeah, we are without Josh tonight, but he is here in spirit, I guess, somehow.
We need to get cardboard cutouts of all three of us.
We
now.
do. I mean, we need to invest.
It's a good point. That's a good investment.
And not even good ones. Like, you know they're bad, but you still appreciate that they're there.
That'd be great. Well, a lot has happened. We are now episode 3 into what we are calling the Magic Daddies podcast. We have a new sponsor.
The
We're very
podcast
happy.
version, what, 4.0 now?
Yeah, basically. We have a new sponsor. We're very happy.
Printing Proxies, we talked about them last time.
Yep. If you haven't watched the Printing Proxies video, or if you're worried about proxies or curious about proxies, maybe not worried about it, you should go check that video out.
Josh and I chatted about it.
It's a good one. Y'all did a great job.
Don't lie to me.
I have a proxy right here.
Don't lie to me.
It's great. Cabal Coffers. Today, this morning, tomorrow,
In the present.
sometime at the speaking level.
This main phase we're going to talk about.
This main phase, yeah. And then after my combat main phase. Anyways. So we're going to be talking about some
Pre and post combat.
some commander stats from 2024.
Oh.
And then what we're going to also do...
That makes sense. We're a commander channel, so that checks out.
This is true.
Yeah.
And we're also going to look ahead into 2025 and see about maybe guessing some of these new stats that I'm going to sprinkle in front of you and go, hey, here you go.
Okay.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So
I'm so excited to do what I can here.
Good. I gave him no prep on
no
this.
prep.
I never give him prep, though. It's more fun that way. So in 2024, we saw 340 new commanders.
Commanders.
Precons, that's in the set, that's commander-only decks.
I think that number sounds large. I'd love to know what the 2023 number was.
I don't know, and give me about 45 minutes, I might be able to find out.
But I think the thing that would make me feel like I would believe that, because we got Fallout, right? That was a bunch of new ones, because there was a lot of even monocard legendaries, right? And 2-card legendaries in those decks. We had a ton of sets this year. Modern Horizons 3 introduced new precons, right? So, I mean, that makes sense to me. They told us supposedly that going forward there's going to be less legendaries in some sets. So I would be intrigued to see what the number looks like next year, right? When
this year?
Yes, 2025, since we haven't seen any actual cards. Right. Innistrad Master will not contain any new cards, so it's not going to count.
Right.
Like we saw that Aether Drift only has 2 precons. There's been rumors that the space set only has 2 precons based upon some product listing leaks type things, and so I'm both sad and happy that there's less precons. I genuinely like precons, so I'm kind of sad that there aren't more of them, but I'm intrigued.
I mean, well, this leads me into my next question. You kind of answered it. How many new commanders this year do you think will be released?
This year? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I average... Final Fantasy... I think Final Fantasy and Spider-Man are going to be tough because they're going to probably be a lot like Lord of the Rings, where there's going to be a lot of legendary creatures, right? More than normal. I think our standard sets might have between 20 and 30, right? Legendaries apiece. So let's say three for that. So that's somewhere in the ballpark of 90 to 100. We don't know what that 4th Universes Beyond set is yet, or that 3rd Universes Beyond set, so we can't guess that. But you've got the precons and the alternates. I don't know. I think it'll end up probably being slightly less, but still in the same ballpark. I'm thinking maybe upper 200s because I feel like we're still going to be close because we have those, like I said, Final Fantasy is going to have a lot of legendaries, right, between all of the characters, right?
Right.
Spider-Man, I'm going to guess that he and all of the villains are going to be legendary, right? So you're going to see a lot of them there. We don't know what this third Universes Beyond set is, but if it's something that's a property that has, a lot of lore,
of characters and whatnot,
it's going to be a lot of legendary creatures, right? I don't think it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be Lord of the Rings level of legendary creatures, but we don't know. There's no way to know, right? So my gut tells me it's less because we actually technically have less product releases, which is crazy when you think about the fact that we have 6 standard sets coming out this year, but we don't have as many supplemental sets as we did last year.
Past year, yeah.
Because we had both Ravnica Remastered and,
Modern Horizons 3 and Foundations.
And Fallout.
And Fallout.
Well, Foundations is standard legal, so...
Sorry. Yeah.
But you had Fallout, and then you know what I mean? So it's like you had more of those supplementary products that really just add numbers to it, So Again, now I could be 100% wrong, and it's going to be like 500, and I'm going to look like a dummy, but I hope not.
My hope is that my hope is 250. I'm hoping for 250.
I'm hoping for 5 specific legendaries next year. We memed in the first episode about my hopes for them, but I hope that we see those 5 back.
Right. I see... Or I don't see, my comparison is always back to 2014 or 2015 rather, with Tarkir and that whole block only having a handful of legendaries and whatnot that we could use, and then later on that year was Origins, which again only had I think 10 to 15, maybe more. Somebody quote me on that. Don't actually, but anyways, there wasn't the number of past 100 for a year of legendaries.
I think it's just because that commander design idea affects so much.
Yeah.
They could get away with making those uncommon, those signpost uncommons legendary because it matters further. Yep. I don't know. It's interesting to me. I really would love to see what not having that design philosophy, what it would do to those numbers.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because you're right. You try to go back and pick a set even that Shadows over Innistrad block. There's not a ton of legendaries in that block. Especially when you take away the Planeswalkers that they wanted to make sure were there, right? You look at War of the Spark. Even War of the Spark doesn't have a ton of legendaries in it because it's just so packed with
Planeswalkers.
With those Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting to me. You even look at something like Wilds of Eldraine, which, although it had all those knights in every color, it still doesn't have a ton of legendaries. So you're right. I think it's kind of interesting when you go back and look at kind of pre-Commander focus design versus now, and you see the huge difference.
Yeah, I watched EDH Rec Cast. It kind of gave me the idea for this question, and I watched their episode talking about 2024, and they were saying how they even stated that there's just so many. Of course, they brought up Thunder Junction having a legendary in every single corner and whatnot, and I agree. I think there were just so many from this past year that it almost became too much, in my opinion. Just because, it's great for you and me, brewers at heart, who don't mind literally looking at the most random uncommon and
there's
going,
probably
deck.
Also a way to play the devil's advocate and say that just because a creature's legendary doesn't mean that it had to be designed to be a commander.
That's so true.
Because I think of specifically something like Bartolome from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, the kind of uncommon signpost for that archetype, which is just all about sacrificing your creatures. Probably a decent commander that is a sack outlet, but there's way better options in those 2 colors for vampires. But the question is, was it designed to be a commander, or was it designed to be a signpost card, but they threw legendary on it because it was a new named character that they wanted to show up, right? That's the question, right? And I think it's easy to get in this mindset of, well, they just went in trying to introduce 340 new commanders. And the truth is, some creatures probably just got stamped legendary that probably could have not been legendary.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's move on. In the top 100 on EDH Rec, there are already 8 commanders from 2024 that are in that category for the past 2 years, not for the past month, week, or anything. In their past 2 years
that doesn't surprise me.
Category, there are 8 commanders that were released last year that are already broken into the top 100. You want to guess any of them?
Well, Ulek's definitely a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
one of them.
It'd be pretty surprising if it wasn't, just due to what it is.
Yeah.
All right, so let me think back through last year in my head. It was Karlov Manor, right? I doubt anything from Karlov Manor is in the top 100. Let me think. Let me think this
There
through.
is one.
No, Voya.
Yep.
Voya's definitely up
There you go.
I forgot
You got
Voya's
two.
in that set. Voya's a monster.
Oh my god. They basically called it a problem.
OTJ. I could see OTJ having a couple commanders, mainly because a couple of those commander deck commanders were pretty darn good. Like, I doubt Stella Lee's in the top 100, but it was a popular commander. I'd be very intrigued to find out that, like, Yuma's in the top 100, because it was a very popular pre-con.
It is not. Yeah, Yuma's not in the 100, actually.
I doubt it's somebody like Loot being out of that big score.
I wish. I love Loot. I might rebuild that. That's a fun time. It's one you're not thinking of.
I wouldn't be shocked to know that a commander from OTJ is in the top 100.
There is one.
I just can't think. The only one that comes to head, just because I'm currently working on it for the channel for Indestructible Masters, is the Gitrog or Ravenous Ray. Just because I think it's such a fun commander. But
it's Obika.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Obika's always been popular, especially its original printing. So that's
popular.
And the new one actually is pretty good as well.
So you got 3 so far. You have Ulalek, Voya, and Obika.
All right, so then we go to Fallout, right? I could see Caesar being in the top 100
Caesar
for sure.
is in the top 100.
I could see Mothman being a rogue.
Mothman is actually the top commander of 2024.
That's not surprising.
And there's one more, too.
Because you take a strategy like Mill that's always been really beloved, but has kind of always not hit its mark. And I think it has hit its mark this year in the Mind Skinner, which I have no idea whether it's actually on the list or not. It deserves to be. The Mind Skinner is, I think, a brutal Mill commander.
It is. It is not in the top 100, though.
Okay.
And then there's one more, though, from Fallout. You have Caesar, Mothman, and one more person.
So I doubt it's dog meat.
I wish it was dog meat. That would make me happy. Yay, dogs, I guess. I don't own a dog.
I guess it could be Madison Lee with the energy support, but I just doubt it. I think Satya was pretty popular.
It is Mr. House, actually.
Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, giving someone dice rolling payouts with treasures makes a ton of sense that would be popular. Mr. House is just also, I think, a really cool commander in its design.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That makes a ton of sense.
All right, so you have 2 more for the rest of the year.
From Fallout, we go into Bloomborough?
Before that.
Modern Horizons 3.
Yep.
I guessed Ulalek. Are there any other commanders from Modern Horizons 3?
There is one more from MH3.
I could see Soren being up there.
I wish Soren was up there. I wish any of the flips were in there, but
I could see Tamio or Grist being up there, but I bet you they're not.
I thought a Johnny was going to be up there, but it's not.
Is it another pre-con commander?
It's not. I'll be nice. Just say it's not.
Watch it be some rogue pick like Shogengar.
No. People aren't that lame. That card's actually kind of lame.
In the main set or in a deck?
It's in the main set, actually.
In the main set.
You built this deck. You played this deck. You liked this deck, I think. And then you were like, do I like it enough to keep it? And then you were like, ugh. Every time I play it, it does what I want, but it doesn't do exactly what I want.
I'm blanking.
It's the Necrobloom.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense, yeah. Because I feel like the only other commander in that space is like Thalia and Gitrog, so that makes a ton of sense. The Necrobloom does so much on one card. I'm actually very surprised I didn't think of that right away, because it's kind of like exactly what a color combination wanted on a card. So that makes a ton of sense. I'm very surprised I didn't think of that. Is the last one Balin?
The last one is Balin.
Okay. I was like, because I can't think of another commander from Bloomborough that I think is going to be higher than Balin on the list.
Yeah, and of course there's none from
House of Horrors, maybe. The House of Horrors?
Good lord, what is it actually called?
Dustmourn.
Dustmourn, thank you.
And I guess technically Foundations, but
but there's none from there, unfortunately.
I don't think there's any commanders I can think off the top of my head from Foundations that are going to be that popular yet.
Not yet. All right, so my question for you, though, is how many new commanders do we think will be in the top 100 in 2025?
I think at least one from Final Fantasy. If
I was about to just ask, from what set do you
Because
think?
you think about a set like 40K. 40K spawned like 2 massive commanders in Calgar and Be'lakor, right? And fun enough, only one of them. Fun enough, neither of them were the face cards of their deck, which is very interesting.
It's true, yeah.
I think Final Fantasy will spawn at least one, only because of how popular Final Fantasy is.
Right.
I don't see them accidentally just hitting some archetype that really needed a new commander and just giving it some love. I think the same thing with Tarkir. it'd be hard to believe that one Dragon Commander from Tarkir doesn't at least crack the top 100. Especially since Dragon Commanders are really, even though there's some great ones out there, the problem is it's a very top-heavy list, and so I think they're looking for some sort of mid-range, middle numbered type, And I think if my prediction about either 2 or the 3 color idea for those dragons, there's a lot of them that could fulfill that role to me.
I definitely agree.
Aether Drift, my gut says there's got to be at least one, because there's going to be something that cares about vehicles, and my guess is there's going to be something that cares about vehicles in 3 colors that's going to make people want to play it.
I think that's going to be like the Voya thing, where unfortunately you have all these commanders that are like super vehicle heavy, and then you have like this one-off that just is so good.
I could see
that's not about vehicles.
I mean, heck, it could even be one of the new Amonkhet gods, or it could be like one of the people. I actually think my guess for Aether Drift, and I have no idea. There's talk about that Saurian race on Morgana that's like these dinosaur people. Like, I think they might even spawn a dinosaur commander that's popular, because dinosaurs are so popular after Lost Caverns of Ixalan. The space that I have no way to call, I have a feeling it could have one. The question is, I just don't know what its identity is going to be. But my same philosophy for Final Fantasy is my same philosophy for Spider-Man in the unannounced set. They're all going to at least have one. For the Spider-Man set, it's probably going to end up being one of the Spider-Man cards. But it could also be somebody else. I mean, it could be somebody like, who knows? Maybe the Rhino card or something is like really good, so people want to play it. Or, you never know. Like,
or they say screw it and they actually make it to where you can play all 6 of the Sinister Six.
Because I could see something like Final Fantasy, like I could see, what if Cloud's like the most popular? That would make sense, right? Or like, what if Sephiroth's popular, right?
Sephiroth.
Like, I feel like it would make sense. So I would be willing to guess that both Final Fantasy and Spider-Man could have a chance of spawning at least 2, depending on what certain cards are, because... Lord of the Rings spawned a couple of good ones as well, and it's one of those full sets. So I don't know. Is it over or under 10? I guess would be the question. My gut says it's going to be over, just because we don't know what that 3rd set is yet, and if it's a really popular franchise, I have a feeling it's going to spawn something. Now the only problem is it's at the end of the year, meaning that it doesn't have that time to mature the decks like something like Final Fantasy or Spider-Man.
Yeah, for sure. I think though that if it is as popular as it could be, I think it has the potential to, at this time next year, be up there.
I think if you look at all the other Universes Beyond stuff, like they spiked as soon as they released. It wasn't like it was a slow burn up. It was one of those things where it spiked and
they spiked as soon as they were announced. I think, especially if we see like a Spider-Man card. I mean, that's still kind of on the latter part of the year.
Well, I'd love to know what the numbers look like for the Secret Lair Marvel Commanders, because I think it might give us some of a.
None of them are in the top 100 yet.
But I think it could be,
because I was gonna include them.
It could be a good litmus test, because that's an example of a very popular character basically getting an option. Like, I think that's what's gonna happen with Spider-Man. I think for sure we'll get multiple Spider-Man cards. Now, if that's Spider-Man, a name, or if that's Spider-Man and a Miles Morales card, we don't know, right? But my point is that, like, I think there's going to end up being multiple Spider-Men. So it's like, the question is, are multiple of them popular, or is just one of them, right? I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But what I have a gut feeling with Spider-Man is you have a property that has a lot of faces that people know on both the hero and the villain side. So I feel like there's a good chance you're going to hit multiple. Same thing with Final Fantasy. Like, I have a feeling you're just going to, especially with precons being involved, that always is going to create some sort of people who buy this precon and keep it upgraded. There was those people who bought the dog meat precon because they loved dog meat, and then they had that. You know what I mean? So like, there's always the chance of those kind of getting popular. So I'm going to say over 10.
That's what I was thinking too. I think because of Spider-Man having so many characters that will probably spike like crazy. I think since Final Fantasy has a lot of characters that can spike like crazy, like you said, at least 2, Cloud and Sephiroth being those 2. I also think that Tarkir is going to be better than what we're expecting.
Yes.
For legendaries, at least.
And I think it's not just going to be dragons. I think there's going to be some of the clans as well that are going to show up. I think
we're going to see like a new Goreclaw or Sirach, or
better.
Or like Sidisi. Well, Sidisi's kind of dead, so maybe
then we can have a
Sidisi.
whole podcast talking about whether or not I switch from Sirach and Goreclaw to the new Goreclaw.
Sirach, yeah.
It's free content.
I think it's going to be one of those moments. What is that person's name? What is Storm's name? Storm is Storm.
Force of Nature.
Force of something, yeah.
I think, or something.
because I feel like she's gonna be the top one. She's actually at 199 with 6,155 decks.
Really?
Yeah.
I would guess that I think that Wolverine could end up being the top one.
He is not. He's 365 right now. I thought so too.
Because I could see Cap being, but Cap's a little bit. It's a flashy card, but I think there probably aren't a ton of people looking. The only thing about Storm that you're right, I think it's just because Teamer Storm, meme and pun included, is a very good idea for a set, especially right now with Team Marauders being so.
Yes.
You having these great spell slinging engines that have come out of some of the more recent sets. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Captain America's got 327, ranked 327, 4,420 decks, and then
who do I think's last?
It's probably Black Panther. Unfortunately. Iron Man's 517 with 2,921 decks, and then B-Panth.
Which is sad because Black Panther was like one of my favorite decks of those 5 to brew. I think it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, he's at 763, 1,812 decks. I just think because his card is so lackluster, it is a very good card.
You know what it is? It's that no one wants to play Inkmoth Nexus and be that guy.
Yeah.
That just nukes the table with Inkmoth Nexus. But yeah.
True, so true. All right, well, let's move on to our next question category thing. So we kind of talked about... we kind of talked about what sets would produce some good stuff, so we can actually skip down to this question. So MKM, which was Murders of Markov Manor. The Clue set had, catch this, the most top new cards of 2024. Now, granted, yes, it did come out at the very beginning of the year, but honestly,
not surprising. You get a cycle of 10 lands.
Exactly. It's had some good cards.
What else was in there? Vein Ripper, I'm sure, is very popular because not only is it popular in Standard, but it's kind of a newish credit type engine.
Archdruid Charm, which is a fantastic card. You had, trying to exclude,
Commander cards?
No, the reprints.
Reprints,
the lands are the biggest thing, of course.
Because those were huge. I mean, not only because they're great lands, but because they're dual typed, which is immediately going to make them popular. Yeah. I think all of them still sit above $10, if I recall correctly.
So what set do you think will have the best cards from 2025? It can be like, maybe this set will have this one card that's going to be like top tier.
The difference this year is they're all going to be standard legal, which I feel like is going to make a big difference, right? Because last year there were some brutal cards from Outer Horizons 3, but they were never standard legal, right?
You mean Nadu was a card?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they were across every format, I think, Boros Energy was probably more playable, could have been a very brutal standard.
Oh,
I mean, obviously the set would have been very different if it was standard legal. But my point is that, like, we don't get to really see stuff like Fallout or Modern Horizons 3 on that list because they're not across all formats. So I think that's going to be the intriguing thing. My gut tells me it's going to be either something like Tarkir or it's going to be something like Space.
I was about to say the Eternities.
Just because I think that Space set is just so veiled right now. We don't really know what it's going to be. And that could mean a lot of random things.
So what makes me think the Space set will have... I'm going to have to call it the Eternity set to kind of like prove my point, is because it's just that the Eldrazi, the big three, are from the Blind Eternities. So if those three, being the powerful cards that they are, all of their cards are so powerful, I think that something bigger than them is going to come out of it.
Just remember, Bolas is coming back.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's everyone's guess.
He has to. First off, Tarkir. Second off, Ugin.
I don't think it's going to be a Tarkir. I think
it's going to be like Tarkir, though, where
because everyone's like, why is Ugin on Tarkir? Why isn't he? Yeah.
Right. I think it's going to be like the first time we were at Tarkir, though, where you have like these cards that kind of like give these little remnants, Well,
I think it's also easy to remember that, like, in the Magic lore, right, all dragons are born from the same, mother dragon kind of brood, right? And so I think there could still be influence of Bolas on Tarkir, even though he's not there.
I think it's going to be kind of literally... Oh, wow, that's a cool idea. I think it's going to be kind of flipped, maybe, where you have, like, the Tomb of Ugin. Now you're going to have, like, the Tomb of Bolas.
That could be cool.
That would be really cool. But anyways, I think the Blind Eternities is going to have the best card the best cards of the 2025, just because of what it is and what could come from it. Yeah, that's gonna be nutty.
I think what's also going to be interesting is what the reprints are going to be. I think the interesting thing about all these universes beyond set being standard legal is I think what it's going to end up doing is there's going to be some reprints in those commander decks, because I imagine they're probably going to have like specific art like all the rest of them have.
Right.
There's probably going to be some pricey reprints in those decks, not just because of the card, but I think it's because of the art it's going to have that people are going to want them.
For sure. So let's talk about the best set for precons. Hang on, let me word this correctly. What do you think were the best set of precons from 2024? So it could be like the Murders of Markov, the Murders of Karlov Manor, the Fallout decks, the OTJ decks, the MH3 decks, the Bloomburrow decks, or the Duskborn decks.
Which is funny because I think Bloomburrow's set is the most expensive right now because of that Squirrel precon.
Yeah, so good.
My gut says if I had to pick my choice, it would be a close 1-2 between Fallout and Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah.
Because I think the Fallout precons are all really good. Lee's the only odd one out because it kind of got a direct competition in the set after it, Modern Horizons 3.
True.
But I think Lee and Satya are different enough that you have different options for energy, and they both literally get to just cannibalize on each other and having all those great reprints. But Modern Horizons 3 had, to me, one of the best Eldrazi commanders we've ever seen.
Unfortunately, yes.
I think it's very hard once you start seeing what the upper power levels of those decks do and start breaking stacks wide open. You have a lands commander that is very interesting, and I think a lot of people love it for.
It blows everything else out of the water right
now. The
now.
Goyfs are back. I think it's such a cool deck. It takes everything John wants to do with the graveyard and makes it into something else.
I agree.
And then I think Satya is a very interesting way to look at energy, and it pays off the Modern Horizons 3 spin on energy a lot better. I actually think it also pays off the Kaladesh style of energy a lot better.
And I think you can still add the Fallout energy into it as well. And
my thing with Fallout is like you look at Caesar is top tier. House is top tier. So now you have two commanders that are doing that.
Mothman is still...
You go to Mothman. Yeah. Mothman is one of the best mill commanders we've seen in a long time. Just for its ability to use proliferate to its advantage.
Right.
The alternate commander in that deck I don't think is bad, but I just...
Oh, the little plasm dude, yeah.
The master bio, whatever. Dogmeat I think is fine. I think it's not the best modified commander we've ever seen, but it's not bad. Preston's okay, again, not my favorite.
Right.
But it had really great reprints for a precon, and I think that's important. And then Lee and Liberated Prime, again, are both half decent energy commanders. And the important thing was those precons got better a set later when they introduced a lot better energy stuff.
So what set do you think will have the best precons of 2025? Now, I did write this question before, knowing that we will probably have less precons this year than we had last year, because we're only getting 2 out of Aether Drift, and I'm assuming we're probably only going to get 2 out of a lot of other sets too.
Yeah, the problem is we don't know. I think here's the question: are they going to go back to their old marquee format where they pick 1 a year and have 5?
Perfectly.
If they do, I hope it's Dark Year.
I hope it is too.
But I think
makes too much sense.
I think it's going to be Universes Beyond set, because I think what the precons are going to do is what all the Universes Beyond set have done before, which is they're going to tackle popular characters and it's going to make them popular.
That's so true. I mean, you look at the Lord of the Rings set and you look at like Sauron.
Because think about it, if Spider-Man has a commander deck, people are going to buy that deck, whether and there could be Sinister Six precon. We don't know what that looks like.
That'd be so cool.
So my thing is, like, I'm thinking about Final Fantasy. I can think of every game has a main character and every game has a villain, so there could be mixes of them. I just think those Universes Beyond sets, especially if they do have 4 instead of 2, or however they choose to do them, I mean, I could see them being the most popular. I also don't see Wizards sandbagging the commander decks for these Universes Beyond sets because they want them to sell. The standard sets sometimes get that kit and caboodle of the, they get the scraps sometimes because they, like, think about it. Last year, they wanted to use the design on Fallout. They wanted to use that design on Horizons 3. They wanted those to be the big ones, right? And you kind of saw that as we got towards Duskmorn, where although the precons had cool commanders, they just didn't have that same
it was very
punch to
lackluster,
them compared to the other ones. I could see them saving those high dollar reprints, maybe for those Universes Beyond sets to help them kind of sell or
push it a little bit more,
because they already know they're going to be. I look at like Warhammer that had great killer reprints in those commander decks for decks that were already probably going to be popular no matter what, because of that. So if I had to pick between the three of them, and remember we don't know what one of them is, my gut tells me it's Final Fantasy just because of how popular that game series is. I think Spider-Man is popular, but don't get me wrong, the difference between Spider-Man and Final Fantasy is, remember that Magic exists in other languages. We're not just looking at people from the U.S., and there's a lot of people from Japan that are going to want those decks.
Yeah. That's good. I think I'm
gonna...
And
if they choose to bring collector decks back, which we have no basis for, we don't know, I feel like those Universes Beyonds are the sets that they're going to have it. And if that's the case, then I think that's going to drive them to be more popular.
I think I'm just going to stick with this probably for the rest of the episode and say that the Blind Eternity set is going to be the best set. And it's going to have the strongest cards. It's going to have the strongest...
Because Bolus is coming back.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's going to have the strongest precons. And this is all my opinion, obviously. But this is what I'm thinking. I think it's going to have the best cards. I think it's going to have the best precon. I'm going to jump the gun onto the next question and say that I think that the Blind Eternity set will have the strongest commander of 2025. Strongest. Not most popular. Strongest.
See, my gut tells me they pick a dragon commander for Tarkir that's just going to take over.
I'm perfectly fine with that. But we both can agree that if it's not better than Miram, it's not the strongest dragon commander.
That's true.
I hate saying that.
My gut still tells me it's going to be a Universes Beyond set. My gut still tells me that they're going to try to knock them out of the park. And I think the only problem that we have to keep in the back of our mind is that the most powerful ones from last year, right? I guess except Voya, because Voya came out in a standard set. But a couple of those 8 did not come out of a standard set. So the question is,
I think
will they take the commanders that want to be more popular and put them in the precons to avoid them? Because then that's kind of counterintuitive, because precons are meant to be...
Yes.
So it kind of makes me wonder, what does that look like? I think the true problem is we just have no idea.
I think if we looked at the strong... So the question is, what do you think will be the strongest commander, not the most popular? So like... The 8 that I talked about earlier were probably the most popular that we could argue or whatever. I don't think that all of them are the strongest. Now, out of those 8, I think you would probably put like Ulalek, then Voya, then maybe Caesar.
I think Ulalek and Voya are my top 2, unquestionably, because both of them are just brutal.
I think
Ulalek's a clear one.
I think if Nadu isn't banned, he's probably up there.
I still don't think... I'm going to say it.
Up there.
I'm still going to say it. I don't think Nadu's better than Ulalek, though.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's tough. For me. Just because I've seen it do things.
Because you're right, but at the end of the day, like... Shuko's one card. Shuko's one card.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, don't get me wrong, I've played enough on them Historic Brawl to see, but you also got to remember, colorless is one of those colors that can out-ramp a lot of Simic decks.
Yes.
And it's going to be brutal. I mean, you played Zuladoc. You know how well that deck can get to... You need to put Uladek down once, and that game's going to come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, it's busted wide open for sure.
My thing is, it would be a fun best of 5 series to see which of those 2 would take the one spot. My gut tells me Ulalek, just because there's way more broken Eldrazi stuff that's been printed. But
I think we could also, there's like an argument that Stella Lee is probably one of the best commanders that have been printed of 2024, strength wise, and it's unfortunate that I think a lot of people looked at it, said, okay, you play one untapped spell and go infinite. Okay, that's all that deck is, and it's like there's a lot of more intricacies to it, like. Yes, that is a big part of it, but I mean, it essentially is just another combo deck, and it's unfortunate. I feel like it's going to not be popular because of that, but I think it's still arguably one of the strongest cards or commanders of 2024. I know that the guys over at Play to Win, they play CEDH, so of course they're looking at the strongest commanders, and their top 4 was Nadu, Glarb, which I can agree.
Surveil play off the top and Surveil, beautiful, especially when there's a lot of cards that want to go to the graveyard.
So what did I say? Nadu, Glarb, Stella Lee, and then the fourth one was I'm gonna have to look it up. But while I'm looking it up, I think that they're not very far off at all because of just like
I could see it would make sense with the Ulek's not a CDH commander because it
it takes a while to get there.
Well, no, I think the problem is it's what it actually wants to do is probably too slow for the format. Like, you want a commander that's going to profit from doing things early, and Ulek really needs it to be down first before you start doing those things. Yes, you have a whole nother world of mana production than you do off of a regular commander pool, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think what it's going to come down to is is the strongest commander always, like you said, going to be the most popular? And the answer may not be yes, because either it could catch a stray ban, or the problem is that maybe the most popular commander is just on lore reasons. What if a bunch of people just build Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man? And then it takes a spot over a commander that's just better than it. I think that's always the dynamic. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what even after one set later, how some of these commanders are faring.
Plague On was their fourth one, which I totally forgot about. And the reason why they chose Plague On is because of that first ability that says when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each creature.
Blinkable, it's cheap.
Exactly.
Walls are cheap, yeah.
And I can agree, drawing cards is the best thing.
It's also in the perfect colors for stacks, so I feel like that makes sense,
Yep, and that's exactly what they were saying too. You play a Draenith Magistrate and have a good time. So anyways, which,
unsurprisingly, has a bigger toughness than its power, so
that
checks out.
So anyways, I think that there are going to be some really strong commanders from this year, but I don't know, man. That Eternity set just seems like there's going to be...
Seeing my boy Tezzeret,
Exactly, that too. So anyways, on to the next question. This was a fun one. What random kind of card do you want? I'll answer. I want another deck can have any number of, even though we got 3 this past year. We got 3 new ones this past year, which makes me laugh.
Heir Apparent, Templar Knight, and...
It's your favorite green card? Not really. It's not your favorite.
Slime.
Yeah. Slime against me.
Templar is kind of the lackluster one of the 3.
It is, but I mean, it's still good. But anyways, I just want more. I keep on looking at the petitioners, and I'm like, man, this would be so much fun.
I want not that more much fun. Good 2-color removal.
There you go.
And by that I mean 2-color removal in colors that don't already have good 2-color removal. Like, I don't want another Anguished Unmaking, but I think it would be really interesting to see what would a Selesnya removal spell look like, just to hit some of that. I guess the question becomes, what do we think? Because I feel like I want those spells in something. I guess I want those spells with certain artwork or certain, like, obviously, like, if I don't know what color Spider-Man's going to be, but if he's Boros or if he's Jeskai, well, then we're going to see certain spells probably get popular because they're released in whatever decks. But I would like to see, specifically out of Aether Drift, is probably the set that there's 2 sets that I'm side-eyeing, Aether Drift and then Tarkir. Out of Aether Drift, I'm really intrigued to see what they choose to do with vehicles. Vehicles have really evolved since Kaladesh. I'm very intrigued to see what it looks like, especially with how much representation we have across multiple planes of vehicles.
Yeah.
Each of those teams' vehicles could work differently. They could have different mechanics. I think that's going to spawn some diversity in the vehicle game. That's not just you either playing Shorokai or you're playing Depala or you're playing something else. Like, what does that look like? And then in Tarkir, I really want to see non-red dragons shine. Like, I really want to see some green and some blue and some black dragons. Like, specifically black dragons. We don't have a ton of them, and I think it's a very interesting space for dragons.
I mean, the ones that we do have,
we have popular black dragons.
They're good,
but by number, we don't have a ton of them.
Yeah. We don't have very many blue ones either that are great. We have the Ancient Silver Dragon, which does damage. You roll a d20.
You got Kyrie and then the old one. Like, blue could be fun. But I'm just saying, those non-red colors. I want to see dragons, and I want to see them...
Listen, if you haven't brewed Ojutai dragons and do a little tappy tap with some stuff, it's a good time.
I also want to see Abzan, like, counters stuff on that set, because it seems like the perfect place to do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to have more of those Abzan Falconer, Abzan Battle Priest like cards. Even though we got 2 of them last year, technically 3 if you use Inspired Knight from Foundations. I want to see more of that style. Because like counters is a very fleshed out archetype, but I'd love to see some more of those.
Yeah, we need more than just Anafenza attacking. You get to bolster.
Because I think Mardu's going to have
bolster.
plenty, and Mardu has a great set of cards for it. Tamer, I'm very intrigued. I'd love to see I'd love to see them take reference of something like the old Sarkhan and kind of keep that Tamer stompy and kind of make it work, because that's such a great...
Sarkhan or Sirach?
Sarkhan.
Okay, so Sarkhan, Planeswalker, Dragon, Boy.
Well, no, the... sorry, I'm thinking of Sirach. The Tamer Sirach.
Dragon Claw, got it.
Yeah. Absent, I think that Ojutai could be fun. I mean, we did see...
I don't want them to go prowess.
Zergo and Ojutai with the dragons could be interesting.
I want them to do stuff like that.
But my thing is, I would like to also see them go prowess, because Narset was such a great card in Aftermath.
It was.
I think Standard would probably want to see it. There's
it does.
So much
and
of it there.
And that's why I'm like, man, it's just going to add so much to the...
But I think it would be fun to see a deck like Narset or Kaikar like really get fleshed out by like some good supports. Like, I don't know. To me, I guess I want to see... I guess what I want to see in every set, which is support for archetypes that make them better, and then support for archetypes that need something to push them over the edge.
That's pretty sweet. So
specifically, Mardu Dragons. I want Mardu Dragons to be a thing. I want an option for Mardu Dragons.
We don't. Well, we have one option. It's that one-off dragon or whatever. I don't even know what it does.
So the best removal in the world, they just don't have.
They don't have commander. A freaking dragon. That's true. What do they? Who do they have? Who do they have? Anyways, while I'm looking that up, or before I looked that up, let me ask this question. So, according to our wonderful friends, we have friends. We don't have friends.
We don't have friends.
According to our wonderful friends at EDH Recast, once again, they put out a video.
We would love to be friends with EDH Recast. Those guys are great.
Exactly.
Great podcast. I mean, I don't think I've ever listened to an episode of that podcast I haven't enjoyed.
That's what I'm saying. I listened to it all day today, which was great. So, the average commander deck that they said is, do you want to guess? For 2024, of course.
The average commander deck, like price-wise?
Price-wise, yeah.
I mean, I would love to say between $200 and $300, but I don't know.
You are absolutely wrong. So the average that they pulled a lot of numbers, and obviously Joe has way too much time on his hands, clearly. But, right? Yeah, we all do, I guess. So they pulled the actual average of decks that they have online, of course, to their disposal, and it was somewhere in the 600s. And then they took a median, which is the stat that I took as well, and that median price is around $500. Now, my question, obviously, is, do we think this is too high of a price point, of maybe a barrier to injury, when precons aren't even $100? Now, hang on, before you give your answer, I want to give a little tangent to this. And the reason why I wanted to ask this question and kind of open up this can of worms is for a lot of reasons. One, I look at the proxies that we have, and obviously those don't make a difference in the world. And I even commented on the video and said that we play a format where you are able to play so many goofy characters, so have so much fun playing those goofy characters, play the cards you want to play. Even if it's a dual land from Alpha, play the cards you want to play. I know, though, that there's a friend of ours, or a friend of mine, doesn't really matter, who only buys precons, and maybe he'll update a little bit to it. If he has a card for it, he won't buy singles. And it's not that he's against it, it's just because he knows the price of the good cards. So he doesn't see a reason for getting those cards. And he obviously doesn't really care too much for proxies. He's just whatever. It's not that he's against them. He's just I'm not going to spend the money on a fake card kind of thing, right? So back to the question of, do we think that price point of $500 for an average commander deck is too high when our precons aren't even anywhere close to $100?
Yes, and I'm going to throw a question back at you.
Yeah.
Mikey, what is the average budget of the brews that I make on the channel? I've told you multiple times what my goal is.
You said around $300, correct? Yeah.
I have brewed decks for the channel for $300 that I think could out-combo decks that cost $100 more than it, $300 more than it.
That's pretty great.
So the question is, does your deck need to be $500? Right. And I would say probably not.
Right.
In fact, this video will be out before this deck gets released on the channel.
Okay.
For Just Remastered, I just finished a Will Hilt the Rock Cleaver list that has all of the combos you would want for a Will Hilt list, and it's still underneath $350. Now, you don't have the fancy blue-black lands that cost a lot of money. I'm playing Phyrexian Altar, I'm playing Altar Dementia, you're playing your all your combo pieces, all of it, even some powerful spells for all under $350.
Wow.
And that's a deck that may be able to combo as well as, But I think it comes down to price versus power level. If you want a high power level, then yes, you're going to have to spend the money on the staples and the tutors and things like that. But I think if you want our style of a game that we play in our play group, you don't need to spend $600 on a deck. In fact, I think a lot of our decks could probably pare down and get similar results. So I guess it just comes down to what the player wants. But if I had to recommend an average deck that I think would be healthy for the format, I don't think it's 600. I think it's more like 300.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that you don't realize how much your land base costs when you start to actually get an optimized land base.
Yep.
When you think about it being $20 a fetch, $10 a shock, $20 a triumph, unless you're really trying to nickel and dime your land base. I mean, I'll tell you, on average, in Millzy Brew's episode, I'm spending of my budget anywhere between $70 to $100 of that budget on lands.
Yeah.
And that's lands. That's not even spells. That's not even
30% of your deck.
So think about that, right? And that's me trying to cut corners so that I'd only spend that much on it, less than a third of my budget on lands if possible. Think about if I wasn't holding myself back, how much a mana base could cost. I think in my Miram list that I had together, I had fetches, shocks, triumphs. I was playing an Ancient Tomb. I think that mana base was almost $450 on its own, and that was just the mana base. So you start to think about, as the power level goes up, every one of those categories, right, is going to be expanding. Think about the difference between me not playing some lands like for example, Morphic Pool or Luxury Suite. Those commander, if they come in, if you have two or more opponents, there are certain colors of those that are more expensive than others, and most of them sit at $10 or more. Yeah. Well, if I'm playing a 3-color deck, if I don't really want to spend $45 on Morphic Pool, Luxury Suite, and another card, I'm just not going to play them. So you can start to see where these choices affect your choice. My other question for you is okay, let's say I have a counters deck. Can I play a counters deck without doubling season? You sure can. Does doubling season make the deck better? It sure does.
A little bit, yeah.
But the question is, do you have to pay $60 for doubling season to make your deck good? No, you don't. In fact, I might even argue that you're better off spending $30 on an Innkeeper's Talent and a Branching Evolution in maybe, using I would say if you want to spend $60 on an Innkeeper's Talent and a Vorinclex, and you probably have better value for that $60 than one doubling season. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I think savvy people can take a budget and make it better rather than just click average deck, paste, it's $600. You know what I mean? I will tell you, and this is not a part of this question, but it's something I've noticed. So the one thing I wanted to do as of late when I was brewing for the channel was, I have pretty much never touched the average deck feature in EDH Reg, mainly because I don't need it. I do a lot of my own philosophies when it comes to brewing, and so I've never used it. But for a couple decks for the end of the year, I actually went and looked at the average deck list because I was very intrigued to see, one, what the cost of an average deck list was, and two, would I agree with some of the distributions of card types and things like that. And the one thing I found is, and most of the commanders I did it for were popular commanders, so they were good cards. Most of them had tutors, most of them had shock lands, and most of them had fetch lands, meaning those average decks were above $500. Yeah. But notice the episode that I released was more like $300, and it didn't have those. So it just goes to show you that even an average deck on EDH Rec isn't always a good litmus test of what a deck could be. I mean, there were decks where I took out $80 worth of fetch lands and was able to put back in a good card like a Vorinclex. Bad example because an average deck of a counters deck is going to have Vorinclex in it no matter what. But my point is, you could start to see where when you shrink a budget down, you're able to add in premium removal or premium other things. This is another random aside, but it's kind of the train I've been on. I've started taking Ozolith out of a lot of counters decks that I make for the channel because I don't think it's worth its cost. It's a great card. In the games you see it, it's fantastic. But if you don't see it, it's a dead $30 in your deck.
Yep.
And there are a lot of great synergy pieces that you could spend that $30 on. I could get 8 cards for $30 that are all synergistic versus 1 for $30. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll reference your oh goodness, Magnus.
Yeah.
Magnus. Yeah, you stated that in your Magnus deck, and it sparked me to look at Zexara and brew.
God, I love that deck.
Yeah, I brewed a Zexara deck, and I was like, I'm putting the Oslo in this.
There are only a few decks. There are a number of decks I can count in one hand that I've stopped myself from playing, and that other people have stopped me from playing. One of them was Miram. I mean, you guys didn't tell me I had to stop playing it, but
it's fine.
It was one of those things where, at the time when I played Miram, our play group wasn't ready for Miram.
Oh yeah, no, we were way behind.
And the second was Zaxara, because again, at the time I played with a lot of really new players, and Zaxara is one of those decks that you have to know where your window is, and if you don't, it's going to blow you out of the water.
Yeah, it was bad. It was real bad. But anyways,
super fun command, and that's I think what kind of spawned my love for Magus, is because it's a similar vein, but it doesn't have a lot of the bust wide open combos that you get in Sultai versus Tamer, but
you still get some nasty stuff out of it. Because who doesn't like copying their spells, right?
Although I think it's fun because in Magus you get all Obi-Wan, which I think is a fun card to add, because when you're making massive, can you think about Zaxara with all Obi-Wan? It would be worse. It would be way worse.
Omnixilus literally is the combo with it. So yeah, no, I know it. It's crazy. It's bonkers. Well,
all that to say that yes, Mikey, I think that $500 or $600 is too high. I hope that the work I've been doing proves that decks can be good. And can exist on a lower budget. Do I think that they're always going to be power-wise better than that? No. I think you're going to go up the power scale the more money you spend, because adding a couple tutors, adding a better land base will make a deck more efficient.
I agree.
And more consistent. But if your play group's not, or if the play group, if the shop you play at isn't trying to be a turn 4, turn 3 format, or a turn 5 format, then you're not going to have fun with your $800 deck when no one wants to play against it.
Yep.
But if you go take a $300 deck that still can punch, it just can't punch on turn 4, but it can punch on turn 6, you're going to get those better games, and I think you're going to have a good time. And I've seen that time after time when I play with random people. I'm kind of trying to judge where they're at and picking a deck that I think punches down to that play level, because then I think it creates a better game than someone going, oh, I want to play against that deck. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Because like, your precon is not going to do anything.
Your precon is not going to help you in this. Yeah. I will say, and I said this to you, and I watched it, or taken this from another video from somebody else as well, but to spout it out to you guys as well, if you haven't, I think that if you are worried about budget or anything like that, and even going into this year, if you're worried about budget or anything like that, what I would challenge you to do is to brew the same deck that you have, like your favorite deck. If you're in the situation like Zach just talked about, where your $800 deck is punching way too fast, or people just hate the deck and they're openly telling you about it. Like, if you are, oh, woe is me, feels bad, brew that same deck with a $25 budget. And that sounds terrible, but with lands, with the commander, unless you're playing Edgar Markov, then you have no choice. I'm so sorry. Sucks to be you. But with the lands, with the commander, and every card in it, try to brew it at a $25 deck.
I'd even say 100. I still think you have a solid challenge.
Well, the reason why I say 25 is because what you're going to find yourself to do, and I'm going to compare it to 100 because I've done both. So what I found myself doing was really, really putting myself into a corner of like, I want these 40 to 50 cards that do what my deck wants to do. And then the rest is stuff I know that is going to support like a tutor would, but it's not a tutor, or it's a cheaper tutor. Support like a fetch land would, but it's not the fetch land. It's, this tap land, my surveil land maybe that's a little bit cheaper or whatever, which are not really fit in the budget, but you get the idea.
Well, you're playing Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds versus Fable Passage.
Exactly. Which I have started putting Terramorphic and Evolving Wilds in most of my decks now because it's fine.
Especially if you're 2-color and you're not playing a ton of dual lands.
Exactly. It's fine. So, and comparing it to a person who has done a $100 budget, like I played a Yuriko deck that was at a $100 budget, and we saw that deck do phenomenal years ago. And to the point where I was even like, if I go any further with this deck, which I wanted to, and I stopped myself, so I just kind of destroyed the deck in general for that reason, knowing that it was going to probably get to the point of almost CEDH level,
But
where
I think,
wanted the deck
I
to
think
go.
it's Yuriko and not the budget.
For sure.
Because I think
for
$100
sure. Yes.
Chatterfang deck could probably still amount to the same thing.
Yeah.
A $100 Corval deck is still probably going to do the same. You know what I mean? It's the commander at that point, not the budget. The reason I say 100 over 25 is I love your idea, but a new player is going to have a terrible time blurring a $25
Yeah,
deck.
that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
I think 100 pads out a little bit of safety. If you think about it, you could also say, hey, I paid $60 for this precon. What would I do to add $40 to the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's also, but my only thing with 100 is you get a lot more options to add strategy pieces that are a couple of dollars a piece that can really stack up. And I'll even tell you, my whole point of Millzy Brews, right, is to keep to a budget, but it's also to promote synergy over cost.
Yep.
If I can play a $2 card versus a $10 card, both are equally synergistic, I'm going to play the $2 card. But there are times where if you have a $2 versus $10 card and the 2 is a little bit less synergistic, but it fits in your budget, it's sometimes better to play that one. I guess for the purposes of the show, that's what I do. But then I realized that, like, it's still good. Just because it isn't, quote, this card that's better than it doesn't not make it a good card. I think so often we compare cards straight up.
Yeah.
And not remember that each of them are still very good cards. They just may be a little bit different depending on what they are.
We could. I like
think about Anguished Unmaking versus Utter End.
That's something
Both
like that.
of them are very good spells. They're 1 mana different, and the 1 mana different is the reason that one is $10 and one is $1 or 50 cents.
Yeah.
Both are very good cards. Both hit any permanent. That's a huge thing in our game. But it just goes to show you that both of them are still playable. In fact, I know a lot of people that play Utter End in white-black decks because Utter End is still one of the best. It's like Generous Gift and Stroke of Midnight, right? They're so usable on anything, which makes them premium removal, right? Although you're still going to play Swords to Plowshares and Path, right? The point is anything that can hit any better, it's going to be better. It's the reason why I look at a card like Terra Sunder has gotten so popular. Because it can hit anything. It may cost 4 mana to do it, but you're willing to play it because sometimes you're going to luck out and only have to pay 2 for it.
Right.
But again, it's like, just because Utter End isn't better than Anguished Unmaking doesn't make it unplayable. In fact, a lot of precons have underended it because it's a great spell and it's great at what it does. It's kind of like, it's the same vein like Mortify versus Anguished Unmaking. Like, yeah, Mortify does an exile and it hits a lot less things, but it's still a great creature removal tool because it's going to nuke what you pick, right? It's what? Artifact, creature, and enchantment? I could be wrong on that.
No, I think
Planeswalker,
right.
maybe, for Mortify. But again, the point is you're not hitting everything, but you're hitting at least 2 relevant things.
Yes.
So that's just one example. But it's like, think about when you could apply that to other things. Like, I'll go to counters decks because they're so popular right now. We've seen so many big commanders lately. The Simone from Foundations. There's been so many, right? Everybody wants to play Gyre Sage. Everybody wants to play Kami of Whispered Ones. These mana dorks that get bigger for the number of counters on them. Yes, they're great cards, but you don't need them. You don't.
No, I can agree.
You don't need them. Incubation Druid, although it has a little more expensive than it used to be, is still a great. There are other choices. It's not like it's just all about that because it's on the top of your EDH rec page, and so you have to play it every time. Like, you can find other options in your budget and still make a deck. I guess that's my point. You can find other options within your budget, like you're kind of talking about $25, and keep a deck still as good. My only thing with $100 is, I think you can punch a little bit harder, and I think it's a little bit more forgiving. I think $25 is just
I like
unforgiving.
what you said with the new player for sure.
Unless you're picking a really straightforward commander, I think some players have a tough time.
No,
you and I aren't gonna have a tough time because we brewed a lot of decks.
That's what I was saying. I like what you said with the new player person. I think that's perfect, especially like for a person who gets a precon and they have no idea what to do next, or they've never brewed a new deck before. I think
that's why those precon upgrade videos are always so popular, is because people want to know, how do I make this deck better for only a little bit of money?
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of precon upgrades where just putting in $50 makes a deck twice as good as it was before.
I was looking at my Tiny Bones list, and that was like the first thing that came to mind. I was like, what cards could I take out here? I could take out the Deadly Relic, I could take out the Targaryen, I could take out the Maha, and then I could take out like the Cabal Carfers and the Urborg, and I think the deck is still going to function very well. It doesn't.
And you're knocked $100 off your, and $130 probably between those 6 cards. So again, I think it's easy to over-sexualize budget and have it be this thing that's like, if budget matters. But the truth is, like, I think synergy should matter. We should always brewing focus synergy over budget, as long as you can fulfill both of them.
Yep. You should always put Draenith's Magistrate in every white
Remember,
deck.
3-Tree City goes in every Kindred deck, no matter what the cost.
Oh my gosh, I saw this person.
No.
It's funny you said that because I saw this person argue that 3-Tree City isn't that great in every single Kindred deck. And I was like, dang.
In every deck, no.
I can agree.
In every deck, the answer straight up is no. Most decks, the answer might even still be no, because there's a lot of tribes that don't go wide.
Yeah, I was about to say, he said though that if you put 3-Tree City in a token deck, you could get some pretty good value out of it. And I was like, yeah, I don't like what you said there, but but you said the truth.
Think about it. The strategies that are making 3-Tree City the best, elves, goblins, the tribes that are just printing.
Do they go wide?
Who would have thought, right?
You play Krinko?
You had notes, right? We should get back to them before I just continue to.
Those are my notes, actually. We have hit every single one of them. So 2025 is going to be a fantastic year. I think that I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it every single episode until it comes out. The Blind Eternity set will be the best set of 2025. It will have the strongest cards. It will have the strongest commander. I don't know about the precons. Precons might just be
Tezzeret's going to be the most broken planeswalker to exist. It's going to be...
If he's not a flip... They need to just do more. They just do every single one of them need to be flip planeswalkers now.
I honestly don't understand why they don't do more of them.
They're amazing.
Kind of lets you... Think about it. You get to have a planeswalker as your commander without having one. And in fact, there are... None of those 5 flip walkers from Modern Horizon 3 are bad.
No.
All of them are great.
I don't even think the original ones are terrible.
The truth about 2025, honestly, to me, though, is I'm excited because there's just going to be content abound.
Yep.
There's going to be so much for us as content creators that, like, I'm excited. I haven't slowed down, nor do I plan to, and I'm really excited to tackle the year, especially with all the new things. Like, I can't wait for me to release a Final Fantasy video that pairs some hero with some villain they shouldn't be paired with, and people are going to get mad because or my inevitable making Kingdom Hearts references during my Final Fantasy videos, and people are going to get mad, or it's going to happen. Yeah, I think 2025 is going to be a really interesting year of Magic. I think the question for me is going to be like, what is going to change for me in my personal play experience? Like, is there anything that's going to surprise me or make me want to build it? Or are there any of those dragons I'm going to see across the bar that are going to make me want to, look twice? I don't know.
Take me to dinner. Well, we can't wait to see what happens in 2025. We can't wait to see those incredible commanders and all of your fantastic decks. Maybe one day we'll go out into the wild and see one of you peeps, and you'll see one of us, and then we'll play a game of Commander.
Listen, I'm going to let you finish, but 2026 has Lorwyn, and we're going by Strixhaven. That seems pretty cool as well.
And with that, I could care less. Lorwyn's fun, and Strixhaven's a meme in of itself. And if you think otherwise, then you're just as lost as
have to plug it. Check out the Discords in the description below.
Yes, please.
We're in there.
Yeah, come chat.
We are actually in there. I know that everybody says that, but we are in there.
Yeah, we said hello to the new person today. So if you're that new person, I don't know their name because I did not look. Hello.
There's a non-zero amount of people in the Discord, if that helps you.
With that, we will see you guys next time.